All right. So welcome again to South Florida Chapter's monthly education session with Paula Bell, entitled Listen to Understand, Not to Respond. Again, this meeting is recorded. Tonight's agenda will begin with an introduction of the speaker by me. My name is Randy Ennis. I'm the Vice President of Sponsorship at South Florida. And that will be followed by a valuable and likely interactive presentation by Paula Bell and a Q&A session and closing remarks about IABA, our chapter, how you can connect with us, and how you can impact our local community along with us, something we really hope that you might be interested in by volunteering with our chapter. Please use the chat feature here in our Zoom meeting to share your thoughts, questions, and feedback throughout the session tonight. We love hearing from you. We may not respond right away, but we will have a question and answer session following the presentation where you can ask our speaker, Paula Bell, for additional advice or clarification on anything discussed tonight. Paula Bell is a coach, consultant, speaker, and author with expertise in the areas of business analysis, project management, leadership, diversity, equity and inclusion, career development, and self-development. Paula has been the CEO of Paula A. Bell Consulting LLC for 20 years, helping individuals find their passion, build their brand, and enhance their skill sets through consultations, coaching, and customizable documentation to drive results. Paula also possesses 21 plus years of experience in corporate America in project roles to include business analyst, requirements manager, business initiatives manager, business process quality manager, technical writer, project manager, developer, test lead, and implementation lead. She has led a number of highly visible multi-million-dollar technology and business projects to create solutions to transform businesses. Currently, she is also a business support manager for a major financial institution, leading a team of business process consultants to identify processes and execute on continuous improvement opportunities. Paula is extremely active in her community as she is the past president of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Fund, which provides scholarships to minorities attending Iowa institutions and volunteers for many different community events. Paula's belief is mind, body, and soul. And to add to the health component, she studies and trains martial arts and achieved her second degree Black Belt designation in August of 2018. She leverages martial arts concepts to bring forth personal and professional concepts, hence her brand of the BA martial artist, as well as she's a certified extreme hip hop step aerobics instructor. Her desire is to inspire, motivate, and encourage others through a structured journey of self-reflection and awareness as a catalyst for unlimited success. Please join me in welcoming Paula Bell to our South Florida IABA chapter event this evening with a round of applause reaction, if you can find it in your chat. And now I will hand over the virtual microphone and screen to our special guest tonight, Paula Bell.
Thank you, thank you. Wow, that was such a introduction. I don't even know what to say after that. But thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, every time somebody reads my bio, I'm like, wow. So thank you, everyone. And you have people from like all over the globe. This is amazing. It's not just Florida. We've got Australia and Canada and all over. So thank you for taking time out of your day, morning, night, depending on where you are, to spend some time on a topic that I have a lot of passion about and had a ton of passion about it last year in 2020, where this became quite important and evident. So the topic today, as Randy said, is listen to understand and not to respond. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So let's jump right in. The agenda that I have for tonight is pretty packed, and I'm going to go through the teaching part of it, hopefully relatively quickly, because I do believe the breakout session you will be in will be a lot more beneficial to apply what you're learning. So we're going to talk about some statistics and the importance of listening, some tips on listening, a topic that I am a licensed administrator on that I'm going to weave in here a little bit from a diversity perspective, intercultural competence, and how that's relevant to the work that you do day in and day out on projects We will do a breakout exercise and we'll do some reflection and feedback after that. I do have a video. Sometimes video works well with Zoom, sometimes it doesn't, but we'll attempt the video. If not, I've got the link to it where you can look at it at your own leisure as well. We'll recap and then we'll have Q&A at the end for any questions that you might have. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And let's first talk about what is this definition of hearing, right? So when you're listening, I should really say, you're making an effort to hear something. You want to be alert and ready to hear something that's important. Now, I pulled from some statistics from 2015 around listening that I thought was interesting that you might be interested in seeing. Now, 70 to 80% of us are engaged in some form of communication during the day. Could be verbal, could be written, it could even be body language, because body language is a form of communication. Now, out of that, 55% of our time is actually devoted to listening, right? So a lot of that time that we spend, only about half of it is devoted to actually listening. So if we're not listening, either we're just blanking the person out, or we might be talking more than listening to another person's perspective. That's kind of low from a listening perspective. Now, the average person, most of us can hear 450 words per minute. So our ears work faster than our mouth. Imagine that. And then we only remember about 17 to 25% of what we listen to, which is extremely low as well. So think about that. If we're doing 70 to 80% of some form of communication, only 55% of that is devoted to listening, and we only remember 17 to 25% of what we listen to, it's not really high from a perspective of being really able to listen and understand what is coming at you at the form of communication. So what does listening help us to do? And I want you to think about it of clarity and understanding, right? So if you think about it, everyone has a voice. And the same way you want your voice to be heard, so do others. I have to believe that you felt that in 2020. 2020 was a very interesting year. We had a lot of things going on in the world and in the United States, from a global pandemic to civil unrest to financial crises. We had a lot going on. And voices that had either been silenced before, or a voice that might have felt they didn't have a platform to be heard, now had a platform to be heard. And you had all these voices that might have been silent before coming out with a whole lot of feeling, emotion, perspective. So as you were listening to those voices, if you were listening, you were gaining some clarity. You were gaining a different way of viewing how other people experience life, how other people live, how other people's journey is on life, right? So everyone has a voice, and I'm quite sure most people would like their voice to be heard. And everyone has had a journey in life, and not everyone's journey is the same. But because of that journey, the voice that you hear from a person might be very different than your own, because they've experienced things very different from you. So you want to respect that journey, just like you want your journey to be respected. You have certain beliefs, certain behaviors, certain actions, certain ways that you interact based on experiences that you've had in this journey called life. And because of that, your voice is heard in a certain way. But on top of that, what I also found is that some people, who, even though they were listening to the journey and they were hearing the voices, they didn't necessarily agree that that was reality. And if there's one thing I want you to take from this call tonight, is that just because you may not understand someone's reality does not mean the reality does not exist. It does exist for that person. It is real for that person. It may not be real for you. You may not be able to understand it, but it is real for that person. Even as you are, as a business analyst, project manager, whatever your role might be on a project, and you're working with maybe subject matter experts, and let's say you're working on a project that's automating a lot of manual processes. The reality to that subject matter expert that has been doing that process might be, I'm going to lose my job. However, your reality, because of the insights that you've had, the conversations that you've had, is you're not going to lose your job. This is going to free you up to do other important things that will help grow the business, that will help profit the business. But that person can't see that at that point because their reality is they are stuck in, I'm going to lose my job. And they might feel that way because they've experienced that on their journey of life in the past in their career. So that's where it's coming in. So though it may not be reality to you or reality to others, it's very real to them. And you have to take a moment to step back and take yourself and put yourself in their shoes to really understand their reality. And then everyone has a story to tell. So listen to that story and learn. A lot of times, if you're on a project, taking the SME example, you have a subject matter expert that's very reluctant to engage. It could be that their story has not been a great story in that company. Their story might be, every time I feel that I am in a position where I can be the subject matter expert, do something, it gets taken away because now they want to automate it, or now they have another strategy or another objective. Everyone has a story to tell, and it's really, really, really important and imperative that you listen to that story. You listen to that reality. You respect that journey, and you understand and give that voice a platform to be heard. So when you want to focus on gaining this understanding and clarity, first, you need to do some self-awareness. And this is the ability to recognize what you are feeling, how you react to certain emotional responses to events, and recognize how certain emotions affect your behavior. So you actually do have to take some time and do some self-introspection and self-reflection on how you are reacting to others' voices, journeys, reality, and story, and why you act or respond the way that you do, especially if you have a hard time listening to people. Then you also have to manage those emotions. So you figured out what they are. You might have figured out the root cause to them. How do you manage them so that you are allowing the other
Oh, I think we might have lost you on the audio. But it does say it's connecting, so we are, I think it's probably just transitioning over. Okay. Oh, we still can't hear you. Oh, yeah, I think you're on mute.
I'm back now though, right?
Yep, you are totally back. Thank you.
So one time I tell you that the reason I connect for my audio is because if anything, my audio is usually consistent and my video is what would drop, is the time that my audio would drop, right? That's just how that works.
It's not a problem.
All right. All right. So I'm back. Hopefully I'll stay connected this time. But let's just go really quick, managing emotions. So once you've figured out how your emotional responses are to events and how your behaviors, your emotions affect those behaviors, then you want to figure out how do you manage those emotions, because you want to be able to manage them so that the other parties don't feel that their voice, their journey, their reality, their story isn't important to you. And I would have to believe that most of us don't want people to feel that way. We want people to feel that we respect what they've been through. And then you want to definitely show some empathy, right? This is the ability to sense and understand and respond to what other people are feeling. And so you want to be able to get that sort of feeling and that self-awareness to have empathy with others, which will help you gain even more clarity and insight and understanding on what the other person is going through. So if you're working with a SME who feels like they're going to lose their job, empathize with them. Okay, I understand why you would feel that way. What has been your experiences in the past? How can we help in making you feel more comfortable that that is not the case? Sometimes it's just having those sort of conversations. So when you're really listening and not responding to everything, you have an opportunity to gain more clarity and understanding. And another example of this that I can think of is, I don't know how many of you have ever been on a conference call or in a meeting and you're trying to state something and somebody cuts you off. That's a pet peeve of mine. They just cut you off, or they cut somebody else off who's talking. And that sort of micro inequity of just cutting somebody off can really make them feel as though what I have to say isn't important. So now you've shut a voice down, potentially, a voice that could very well be needed or heard. All right, so we talked about how listening can help you gain that understanding and clarity. So how do you listen? Well, number one, you don't say anything. You be quiet, right? You don't say anything, just be quiet. This is hard to do. You have to be attentive, make eye contact, actually engage with the person. Don't be one of those people who come in and somebody comes into your office and they want to talk to you and you continue to type up the email that you were working on, right? Your body language isn't showing that you're listening at all. You might be quiet, but your body language isn't showing it, right? So you want to be attentive. You want them to know that you're listening to what they're saying. You want to empathize with them, and you also want to be aware of the situation, not just how you are responding to it, but how the other person is responding to you based on your body language, when it is time for you to talk, what you might say, based on how you're being attentive. So you want to have a lot of awareness when you're doing this thing called listening. Now, there are different types of listening that I want to go over. There's active listening, and this is where you're giving your full attention. You're obtaining information, you're learning more, you're understanding the other person's perspective. You are just listening, you're in there. Your eye contact, your body language, you're engaged, and you're just listening to what the person has to say. You might even do a couple of head nods to let them know that I'm hearing you, whatever you need to do to make sure that they know that you are listening to them. It's a little bit harder when you're in the virtual world and you're not on video and you're on the phone, but sometimes even when you're on the phone, just giving some sort of verbal cue that you are listening. Some people like to say, uh-huh, or yes, I understand, or something like that, just to give a little bit of feedback so that they know you're still there and you haven't disappeared off the face of the earth and they're talking to themselves. Reflective listening, this can be paired with active listening, and this is where you're paraphrasing what a person has said to make sure that you understand. So you listen to them first, and then you just paraphrase. So I just want to be sure what I heard you say was X, Y, Z. And then that will give them a chance to respond yes or no. That also lets them know that you are listening to them because you just paraphrased what they said. And you typically can't do that if you're not listening. And then you have the empathetic listening, which is tuning into how a person feels. When you put all these three together, it's pretty powerful. And I just want to point out that empathy is very different than sympathy, right? Sympathy is feeling for someone. Empathy is feeling as the person. They're not the same thing. So some people say, well, I'm a very sympathetic person. Well, that's great. But are you showing any empathy? Are you putting yourself in that other person's shoes to understand what they're feeling or what they were feeling at the time? Now, when you're doing any of these, you want to minimize any sort of communication blocks that you can. And again, I like to use all three. But what I mean by minimize the communication blocks, make sure there's no interruptions when someone is speaking, just like I said with the conference call situation, right? You're talking and somebody just interrupts you. Try not to do that. Don't impose your beliefs on someone else. Listen to what they have to say, whether you believe it or believe them, share the same beliefs or not. We can agree to disagree, but let that person be heard. And then don't start a sentence with, you need to. Because as soon as you do that, let's say you listen to somebody like, you need to, it puts them immediately on the defensive, right? I don't need to do anything but live my life. What do you mean, what do I need to do? It just puts them on the defensive, right? So I avoid starting any sort of sentences with that. I hear this a lot in corporate, actually. Well, you need to do such and such, but well, do I really need to? And it just puts people, I don't know, it just puts them on this defensive and in this state of, almost in the state of not wanting to do what you want them to do, just to be rebellious in a way. So you want to minimize as much communication blocks. These are just a few examples of them, but you want to minimize them as much as possible. And you want to do more listening than asking questions. They say you should be doing 70% of listening, 30% of asking questions. I don't know necessarily if I even do it that well, to be quite honest with you, because I don't think I've ever tested myself or looked at it in that way, but I have taken a listening assessment and I scored pretty high. So I was happy about that. So something is right there. There are assessments you can take, but the point is just really being able to not say anything when someone else is talking and really just getting from them what they are trying to articulate to you, which is, again, really important in the roles that you are in on these project roles, because at the end of the day, you need your stakeholders to communicate their needs to you, and then you need to be able to take that and communicate it to other people in many different forms. And so in order to do that, you need to listen on both sides, whether it's the stakeholders who are giving you the need or the stakeholders who are trying to satisfy that need. Now, let me talk a little bit about some tips and benefits. So when you listen, you have to pay attention, you have to be non-judgmental. And I know that can be sometimes hard, depending on the conversation that you're having. But in order to effectively listen, don't bring judgment into the picture. It really doesn't matter what you think at that point in time as you're listening to the other person. Get their feedback, and then when it's appropriate, you can respond to that. So some tips that you can use is, remember, you are not listening to argue your point or argue at all, right? If you're truly listening, actively listening, you're listening to gain insight and perspective. So if you're already going in there like you want to argue and debate, you're already just listening to respond, because you're not really listening to what the person is saying. You're listening enough to know what you're going to respond with.
Hold on one moment while Paula connects back to her audio. We were just talking about how usually it's her video. So thank you for your patience. It looks like we're connecting back now. Awesome. I think we're good.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on my end, to be quite honest. I've never had this many issues with Zoom. So let's keep it moving.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We'll keep it moving though. So you're also not listening to debate your point, which is which is the same as you're not listening to argue. So it's not about, if you go into, I'm going to debate what I know is right, regardless of what this person is saying. Again, you've already put up a block to where you're not actively listening. All you want to do is respond. You are not listening to just get your point across. Again, you're putting up that communication barrier, because all you want to do is listen to it just enough to respond. And that's not the point. You're not listening to promote your position. You're really wanting to hear what the other party has to say, and you want to hear their perspective and walk in their shoes a little bit. So it's really not about you. You're not listening to respond. You are listening to gain clarity. You're listening to gain another perspective. And at this point, what you desire at this point in time is not about you, it's about this other person. And when you do that, the benefits that come out of it, it'll broaden your perspective. It might bring up something you didn't even think about. You'll have the ability to provide feedback, and feedback will come to you. So there's a great way to communicate there. It builds trust, because now this person knows that you truly want to hear what they have to say. You're not just saying you want to listen to them. Just to say it, you truly mean it. Your behaviors are showing it. It provides clarity, and it definitely increases competence and knowledge, because when you start listening to other people and understanding what they've been through, or understanding some of the experiences that they've had in life, it allows you now to have more knowledge and understanding of maybe an event, of maybe a scenario, of maybe a situation that's happened at work that you didn't know about. So it's helping you to increase that knowledge and competency. So you are truly listening to understand. You are listening to gain that perspective. And you are listening to appreciate someone else's position. And when you do that, they will appreciate you even more. I want to throw a little bit of diversity and inclusion in here because that's something else that I'm very passionate about. And I'm not sure if many of you do, but I work with people all across the globe. So I don't just work with people from the United States. And actually, my family's from Barbados. So I grew up Caribbean. I really didn't grow up American either. So even when I interact with my family, it's a little bit different, right? So intercultural competence is really understanding how you interact with your own culture and then how you interact with other cultures. Because according to Dr. Mitchell Hammer, understanding culture is the foundation, it's the starting point for all intercultural efforts. And if you're working on teams that are dispersed across the globe, you're dealing with different cultures. And it's really one of the most difficult concepts to find widespread agreement on, yet it's so essential to everything that we do because we're made up, our culture is part of us. And everybody has their own different types of culture, right? So a lot of times we spend a lot of time on the objective culture. And when I say the objective culture, that is appreciating other cultures' food, literature, dance, holidays they observe, some of their collective history, instead of their subjective culture, which goes deeper, which is understanding their values, their beliefs, their perceptions, the behaviors that certain groups might have and why they have those behaviors. So I'm actually a licensed intercultural development inventory administrator. And what we like to do is we help people get from just the objective and go into the subjective, really understanding your culture subjectively. Why does your culture have the values they do, the beliefs they do, social expectations they do, right? Instead of staying above the surface. So we go below the surface to gain that understanding. Now, why this is powerful is because a lot of people talk about diversity and inclusion, right? And it was a hot topic last year when everything was going on in the world. And so everybody will say, yeah, I appreciate diversity, which is the differences that we all have, right? I appreciate the difference. But the part that people struggle with is being inclusive of those differences. So it's one thing to embrace diversity, but how do you get to the point where you appreciate the diversity? I have said to hiring managers multiple times, and I'll continue to say it, stop hiring for diversity and managing to assimilation. If you hired a person because of their diversity, can you please just let them be diverse? There's a reason why you said you hired them. There's something that's different about them. So why now are you trying to mold them into who you think they should be and make them assimilate? That takes away from the whole purpose of you hiring the diversity to begin with. Well, the intercultural competence understanding is really how you bridge the embracing diversity and the helping people be inclusive. Because the more you understand about a person, their behaviors, their actions, their culture, the more you can interact with them, build stronger relationships, connect with them, network with them. It's not about staying surface anymore. It's about going beyond just the surface. So if you're interested more in intercultural competence, I'm very passionate about this. If you're interested more about that, we can talk about that later. But I wanted you to also be aware that when you're listening and when you're trying to have this active listening conversation, you got to get rid of your biases, because sometimes your biases are those communication blocks. You already have a bias about a person just by the way they may appear or the way they may talk or their age or their gender. Those sort of things can play. And we all have unconscious biases and conscious biases. And they creep up in very interesting times. So you just want to be aware of that and understand how you can get even deeper under the surface to understand people, to have those more deeper connections, and to make some sort of relationships where people have this trust with you, where they know that they can talk to you about every and anything. Because at the end of the day, as business analysts, we do a lot of detective work, right? We uncover a lot of things. So this is just another piece that I had to throw in here from a diversity and inclusion perspective. Now, I want to jump into the breakout since my audio has dropped like 15 million times. But this is what I would like us to do. I'm going to do breakout rooms because I think this will be fun. So you learned about active listening, reflective listening, empathetic listening, right? You learned about all that. You learned about some tips on how to actively listen and whatnot. So now you're going to practice it. You're going to practice it with a random person on top of that. Or you might know the person, who knows? But here are the two topics for discussion. One, You're going to discuss a time when you were treated unfairly due to your gender and how it made you feel. Or you're going to discuss a time where you were on a project and felt you were not being heard. How did it make you feel? Now, whoever wants to go first can go first. I don't know. We got about 19 people, so it's an odd number. So somebody's probably going to have more than 2 people in it, and that's fine. But these are the rules. Whoever is talking, the other person has to listen. You can't say anything. Can't say not one thing. You could maybe nod your head or say if you're not on video, so that they know you're out there and you're listening. That's fine, right? But all you can do is listen. You can't ask any questions or nothing. You can't interrupt them. You cannot listen. You have to listen without judgment. You have to listen with curiosity. Don't try to fix anything. This is not a solution. We're trying to fix. It's not a problem. Listen with intention. And then again, listen without interrupting. Each person's gonna have about 2 minutes to discuss a time. They're gonna pick 1 or 2. You have about 2 minutes. After that 2 minutes, the other person is gonna go for 2 minutes. And then after that 2 minutes, the other person, you're both gonna have a time about another 2 minutes to discuss how was it? How was it to actually just sit there and listen? You couldn't say nothing for 2 minutes, okay? So first, figure out who's gonna go first. Person A, 2 minutes. Talk your head off. Person 2, 2 minutes. Or person B, I should say, 2 minutes. And then 2 minutes at the end to just have conversation on what the experience was like. And then we're gonna come back in, and this is where I'm gonna need your engagement as well. I have some questions. I want to hear what that experience was like as well, okay? So I'm going to do this breakout room thing. And now we have 18 people. See, who left? Okay, I'm going to create, hold on. Create. I'm doing assignments right now.
Cool.
Just to make sure I get everybody. So just bear with me for a minute.
Pause the recording for now too.
Okay.
On my viewpoint.
3, 2, 1. Everybody should be coming back now. Whether you want to come back or not, you're coming back now. See a few more who need to come in. Wait for those individuals to come in. All right. Okay. So it looks like the majority have come back. All right, so let's have a little bit of a group discussion. This is going to require you to come off mute and talk for a little bit anyway. I want to hear from at least 2 people, because probably the most amount of time we're going to have is, what was the experience like for you to have to just listen to someone else for 2 minutes and not be able to say nothing? Was it uncomfortable? Was it hard? Was it easy? Did you learn something? So whoever would like to go. Always the first one is the hardest, right?
I'll go first. This is Aparna Karki. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hi, Paula, Randy, and everyone. I was with Olivia. She was actually on the phone. She just came home from work. So we started, and I went first there as well. So I shared my experiences and how I felt, interpreting, empathizing, how empathizing helped understand the situation better rather than assuming or coming to a conclusion. So that was my part. I was talking, and Olivia was very kind, nice. She was just, listening patiently and wonderfully. And then I was given a chance nicely to hear her perspective, her experience. And it was almost the same, but she gave a real scenario where she was discounted, her opinion was discounted, and how it ended up And that scenario, yes, that was interesting. Yes, for me to learn. Yes, I have heard and seen this kind of situation, what she went through. It definitely at that point of view, when if I was in that situation, yes, it could have been a little hurtful. But thanks to her, she took it nicely, and how she also felt like the perspective how you see would help you digest it better, rather than just taking it as, fit of anger or just hurting your own self, rather than like, putting it, okay, well, others did not have that opportunity to think the way how I put it. So like maybe next time. So that is my takeaway. And thank you so much. This is wonderful. I really am enjoying this. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. And clearly you were listening because you pretty much paraphrased everything that happened in your breakout room. So that was great. Great job. Great job. Yeah, I need one more. I need one more person. Just one. One more person. Don't be shy.
I can make a comment, Paula.
All right, Kimberly, thank you.
Yeah, I had a great session with Nosa. It was very good. One thing that I observed, I'm very used to listening. It's what I do every single day in my job as BA. But what was interesting is that I think because we are always in a time limit, and so I think we all tend to kind of, we listen, but we all tend to kind of curve off the end of the conversation, if you know what I mean. But this time I said to myself, no, this is the exercise. I'm not saying anything until he literally says I'm done. and now I realize that that's something kind of new, to like literally go to the end until that person's literally finished. I'm not sure how many of us really wait for that moment without jumping in with some kind of commentary. So it was very interesting.
Very nice. I love that. I'm guilty of it too. I'm not perfect at this either, but it's that awareness, right? It's now that you're aware of it, you'll think about it more. And so now it's what I talked about before. It's just that self-awareness. So Aparna and Kimberly, because you actually jumped in and did it, you too get free 30-minute consults with me to talk about any topic you want. I just need to get your email addresses from Randy, and I will make sure that we schedule some time. And again, you can talk to me about anything you want because I do quite a bit of stuff. So if it's life coaching, if it's career coaching, if it's BA stuff, just let me know what you want. Career stuff, whatever you want to talk about. I'll make sure that that happens. We make that happen before this year is out. Thank you. Thank you. So what I want everyone to think about as you went through that exercise, and Kimberly did a wonderful job of self-reflection, that I think that's just a great example for this, is what did you learn about yourself? And do you like what you learned about yourself while you went through and that was just 2 minutes. So imagine if you actually took time to go through a week of just actively listening to people. How could that change your life? How could that change your perspective? How can that change your relationships, right? So just think about that for a minute and be aware of how you interact with others and where you might find that, yeah, I think I'm a good listener, but really I'm not. Or, no, I'm really good at this. I got to keep doing what I'm doing. So that is only you can answer that question. Nobody else can. So just think about that for a moment. I'm going to attempt this video. The way my audio's been going, though, I'm kind of scared. But I'm going to attempt this video. And one of the things that I want you to think about while you watch this video, and some of you might have seen this movie, is what the power of listening can do for you and for others around you. So we tested this before, but let me just make sure. We are going to try this again. And hopefully I don't have any feedback. Let's see.
Where the hell have you been? Everywhere I look, you're not where I need you to be. It's not my imagination. Now, where the hell do you go every day?
To the bathroom, sir.
The bathroom. The damn bathroom. For 40 minutes a day? What are you doing there? We're T-minus zero here. I put a lot of faith in you.
There's no bathroom for me here.
What do you mean there's no bathroom for you here?
There is no bathroom. There are no colored bathrooms in this building or any building outside the West Campus, which is half a mile away. Did you know that? I have to walk to Timbuktu just to relieve myself. And I can't use one of the handy bikes. Picture that, Mr. Harrison. My uniform, skirt below my knees, my heels, and a simple string of pearls. Well, I don't own pearls. Lord knows you don't pay colors enough to afford pearls. And I work like a dog, day and night, living off of coffee from a pot none of you want to touch. Excuse me if I have to go to the restroom a few times a day.
There you have it. No more colored restrooms. No more white restrooms. Just plain old toilets. Go wherever you damn well please. Preferably closer to your desk.
There you have it. Power of listening. That was immediate, right? He listened to what she had to say. Now, she made it really hard for you not to listen to her, actually, because she was the emotion that came off of Taraji in that movie was intense. But to see how her emotion and how putting yourself in her shoes can cause change. She actually was the change she wanted to see. So remember that when you're listening, it's not just only impacting you, but it's probably also impacting you, the people who you impact, and the people around you. So with that, that's what interesting. I think he listened too late. That could be true, Felix. I'd be interested to hear more on that, though. Why do you feel that he listened too late?
Because he works there and he didn't realize that the bathroom was, so his reality was another one, right? It's like, true. You don't listen to your wife and you see her crying till she tells you whatever. And they say, what, you don't live in the same house? For me, it's this same analogy.
That's a very valid point. How did you go about not seeing this? You were in your own world, right? That goes back to your reality is not the other person's reality, right? The good thing is, though, is that at least he did react. Because some people still won't even react after you say what needs to be said. So I'll give kudos there that he did react. Should it have been sooner? Yes. But at least he did when he realized he was wrong. Because she made them listen. She made them listen. She went off. And that's what started some of the change. So we talked about stats, we talked about tips to actively listen, we talked about intercultural competence. If you want to know more about that, that's my information there to hit me up on that. Our exercise was wonderful. Thank you all for engaging in that exercise. I am going to open it up for any questions that you have, but I also want to have my contact information up here as well. If you want to reach out, get connected with me on social media. If you're not connected, I would greatly appreciate it, and I love to stay connected. And a partner, I am not opposed to having you and Olivia. I will give some time to Olivia as well. If that's what you all want to do, we can definitely share it, and we can do a three-way conversation on Zoom or however you want to do it. I just need your email addresses, so that could be great.
Thank you so much, Paula, for accepting that. That is actually the fairest thing to do, you should say. So thank you so much. And it is the team, teamwork. So
yes.
we do that way. Very nice. Thank you.
Not a problem. All right, and with that, Randy, I don't know if I can facilitate conversations, or if you want to jump in at this point, and I can stop sharing. Not sure if there's anything you wanted to share, but I'm open to taking any questions that anyone might have.
Absolutely, we can switch back over, and I will share my screen. If I can manage between all of these screens here. Okay, share and Q&A. All right, I think, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
I think you can. Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Paula. That was very insightful and a valuable message. So now we're going to open up the floor for a quick Q&A session. Before we do, or while you all think of maybe some questions you might have, I do have a question. So I was wondering if you could share maybe some examples in your experience where you had to coach others to understand those subjective types of items that you had referred to in your presentation that are below the surface and more about values, cultural values. If there are maybe something that stands out to you in your experience that you had to kind of coach a team or experience that kind of situation.
Yeah, so in my day job, I'm very heavily involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. So I'm a part of like 10 different employee resource network groups. And I'm a leader. I've been a leader of one of them, and a leader at some point of leadership for the last 15 years. So I have had to coach and mentor other either direct reports of mine as I've managed them, or others on, here goes one. We work with a lot of people in other countries, right? We work with a lot of people in India. We work with a lot of people in the Philippines, right? And so this is where unconscious bias creeps up, right? So let's say we're on the phone and we're having a really hard time understanding somebody because they have a thick accent. So team members will just get frustrated, and they're just like, oh, that's that person talking again, right? And not really listening. Now, the thing that makes it interesting for me is I had a manager, my very first manager so the financial company I work for is Wells Fargo. My very first manager from Wells Fargo is from India. So I got to spend a lot of time in her culture. I would go over, she would invite me over to the holidays. I got to try Indian food, but because we both were heavily engaged in diversity, equity, inclusion, I got to know a little bit more about her and her culture. So one of the things that I would realize with her is she would never really speak up for herself, where I'm just the loud, flamboyant person, right? So she had to tone me down, and I had to lift her up because she was heads down. They have a hierarchical way of thinking. You respect your leaders. You don't question your leaders and whatnot. At this point in time, this is what she had said to me. But I was like, but if you don't become visible, if you don't show the value, you're going to be stuck right here because you're really good at what you do, and they'll just keep you here where you need more. People need to experience more of you than that. So we kind of co-mentored each other. She taught me how to bring it down about 100 notches, and I taught her how to bring it up about 50. And it worked out really, really well. And so when I interact with people from India, I feel like I have a different understanding of some of the cultural norms, beliefs, and social interaction. So when I might hear a team member or a coworker or somebody make a comment, I feel that I can speak to that a little bit. I don't know that entire culture. I'm not from India, so I don't know that entire culture. I can tell you about the Caribbean now, but I can't tell you about everything in India. But I know enough to know that maybe the reason they are responding this way is because in their culture, this is what they're taught, and this is how they're taught to behave. So understand that and help them along the way, right? Just don't cut them off. So it's really just building those relationships and those networks. And I was just lucky that I had a manager who was from another country, and I learned from that. And every interaction I have with people who are not like me, I try and understand who they are. I don't jump right into work. I try and understand them first. And that's how I help to coach and mentor others underneath me. I just pass the information down. That's how I do it.
That's good. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Althea actually has a question. She says, during your initial meeting with a new client, what have you done to warm them up to you to facilitate communication in addition to listening?
When I start with a new stakeholder or client, so I own a business, so I have clients, and then usually with the people at work, they're stakeholders, I don't go right into work. I literally try and get to know the person. You are a person first to me before you're my client or your stakeholder. And so I want to get to know you as a person. The more I know of you as a person, I know what bothers you, what you like, what you dislike, the more I can interact with you and understand how to approach certain situations. And so to me, I think a lot of times what we miss is we're so into work and into doing the job that needs to get done and focusing on the end goal that we forget that we're working with people, and people just want to be people, right? They just want to be heard. So I don't try and get too personal now. I mean, I don't try and get all up in the Kool-Aid and all up in the business, but I do try and have some conversation of like, what did you do this weekend, or what do you like to do, or what are some of your hobbies, or, you know, things like that, just to get to know them, to warm them up. And then I intently listen to them. I don't say anything. I ask the question and then I just let them talk, because a lot of people like to be heard, like I said, so I just let them talk. And then I'll paraphrase, oh, so you like to do X, Y, and Z, so they know that I listen to them. And then that's how I warm them up to build those relationships. My number one strength and strength finder is relator. My number two is belief. So for me, it's all about building the relationships and getting to know people on a more personable level. And then let's get into the work so we can approach it together. I hope that answers your question, Althea.
That is awesome.
And I have to give a quick shout out real quick. I see my girl, Judy Alters, on the phone. I just had to give a quick shout out that I see you, Judy. Thank you for coming. Judy's always had my back. She always has my back.
What you didn't notice, however, is that I arrived like 5 minutes ago. I must not have changed the time when I signed up.
It's okay, but you're here. That's all that matters.
I know. You're so funny.
All right, so I'm not sure. I don't think that we have any more questions. And I think it's probably, oh, we do have another question. Does your consulting listening skills differ from your coaching listening skills?
That's a very good question. Not really. Well, not for me anyway. I don't know if they're supposed to. So as a life coach, one of the things I really have to do really, really hard is listen, because at the end of the day, as a life coach, I'm asking a lot of questions to help people solve their own problems. So I have to listen to what you're saying. But when I'm consulting, to me, I'm doing the same thing, because I'm listening to the needs that you have and I'm helping you come up with a solution. So for me, whether I'm consulting, whether I'm coaching, I don't look at them any different from active listening. I might use something more than others. Like when I'm doing life coaching, I use a lot of empathetic listening skills, because people have been through some rough things and some rough times. So I find that I use more empathetic listening. I'm real heavy on that more than I am with consulting, but I do empathetic listening and consulting too. It's just, you just have to know your audience and figure out what best works with the audience you're engaging with.
Awesome. That makes sense. All right, well, sorry, I'm also collecting some emails.
No problem. I'm looking at the chat on my side too to see if anything else is coming up. I don't.
All right, well, thank you again, Paula. This was awesome. If we have any additional questions, oh, maybe we do have another question, I'm not sure. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. That was such a great presentation and a really good lesson I think that we all can relate to, or we all can improve on as business analysts, no matter if we're a business analyst by trade, by role or not. It's just, I think this was really valuable. If you are not already a member of the IABA, we strongly recommend that you become one, and I'll speak a little more about the benefits of IABA membership shortly, but there are 3 IABA core certifications, the ECBA, CCBA, and the CBAP certification. These are globally renowned and are recognized, and they're great ways to enhance your career. There are also 4 specialized business analysis certifications with focus on cybersecurity analysis, agile analysis, business data analysis, and product ownership analysis. And the corresponding handbooks and bodies of knowledge that support these specializations are free with your IABA membership. So if it's not only about getting your certification, but also getting the knowledge and skills that will add value in the organizations that we support every day and start even. So to master those competencies and make us more valuable in the workplace, wherever we might go in our career paths. Again, we strongly recommend that you become an IABA member. There are a great number of resources available at iaba.org that will help you thrive in the workplace, no matter the industry. There are webinars, certification handbooks, a large amount of resources in the IABA library, and IABA just launched its Knowledge Hub, where you can access tips, tools, and templates. With IABA, you don't have to figure things out on your own. We are a large community of business analysts, and there's a lot of curated content there in the IABA website that will help you along your career. As I said before, we are looking for volunteers. So volunteering with our chapter is a great way to impact our business analysis community here in South Florida and beyond, since we welcome all IABA members and business analysis enthusiasts to our chapter. It's been very rewarding for me personally, being a member here, meeting industry leading professionals like Paula, Danelkis, Judy, Dr. Bhuvan Helker, Jennifer Bedell, Dr. Michael White, Michael Roberts, so many more have helped broaden my perspective of business analysis and allowed me to learn a great deal outside of the networking part of volunteering at South Florida's IABA chapter. There's also the professional growth and business skills that I feel like I'm able to put to practice, like relationship building, event management, program development, data analysis, process improvement, and many others. So if you are interested, please feel free to drop a line in the chat to me or to Nosa. Send us a message or send us an email, one of our email addresses that you see on the screen. And so we can reach out to you, because we would love to welcome you to our chapter as a volunteer. You can also register for our events at southflorida.iaba.org or see the list of our upcoming events. Our next event is with Michael Roberts next month on the impact of DevOps on the business analyst. Then we have Ina Alika. She will be speaking on 7 steps to a successful business analysis career. Then Rachel Wilterdink will be speaking on IABA's take on agile product ownership. And then Michael Roberts will return on AI and machine learning, how to future-proof your BA's career. Thank you so much for attending. You could find us on Twitter and LinkedIn on these 2 accounts here. And we hope that you have a great evening and that you enjoy this session. Thank you again, Paula. It was awesome learning from you tonight.
Thank you, everyone.